I hadn't meant to fall asleep behind the wheel. That was never the plan. But when you're a rideshare driver pulling 14-hour days to make rent in a city that doesn't blink unless you bleed, plans don't mean much. It was almost 3 a.m., and the roads were empty. I'd just dropped off a drunk college kid who asked me if penguins could drive. My eyelids felt like cinder blocks. I told myself I'd just find a quiet place to park for 20 minutes, just a quick nap. I cruised through downtown, past shuttered diners and storefronts with flickering neon signs. Then I saw it. An old multi-level parking structure wedged between two office buildings, the kind of place you'd miss if you blinked. The entrance was a narrow ramp behind a sagging chain-link fence. A rusty sign hung crooked on one of the poles. Condemned, no public access. But the gate was open. Not just unlocked, wide open. It felt off, sure, but I was too tired to care. I pulled in slowly, headlights cutting through dust and shadow. The concrete was cracked, littered with dried leaves and something that looked like a burned-out shopping cart. The first level was mostly intact, just a little water-stained. I chose a corner spot near a broken support column and killed the engine. The silence hit me immediately. Not just quiet, empty. No wind, no rats, no distant city hum. Just stillness. It was weirdly calming. I leaned over and hit the dash cam. Habit. I always keep it running just in case something happens. You never know who might try to mess with your car while you sleep. "All right," I mumbled, rubbing my face. 20 minutes. I reclined the seat and closed my eyes. The last thing I remember was the air smelling faintly like old pennies and rain. Something woke me. Maybe it was the sun creeping through the cracks in the ceiling. Maybe it was that feeling you get when someone's watching you. My neck ached. My mouth was dry. I sat up and rubbed my eyes, and that's when I saw the envelope. It sat neatly on my dashboard, pale yellow paper, typed letters. Citation, improper parking, October 12th, 2001. I blinked hard, then again. My phone said it was April 16th, 2025. What the hell? I picked it up. It felt fresh, not old or weathered. The ink hadn't faded. The paper was smooth. I turned on the dash cam and rewound the footage. I figured maybe someone was pulling a prank. Maybe some bored security guard messing around. But as the video played, my blood started to freeze. At 4:23 a.m., the dashcam showed a man walking past the front of my car. He wore a faded transit worker's uniform, jacket, cap, badge, but his face was blank, like someone had tried to sculpt a head out of clay and just forgot to add features. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. He walked stiffly, mechanically. He paused in front of the windshield, looked in, if you can call it looking, and slipped the envelope beneath my wiper. Then he turned. Right as his head began to pivot toward the camera, the footage cut to static. I stared at the frozen screen, heart pounding. The timestamp was still flashing. 4:23 a.m. That was less than an hour ago. I didn't know what to do. I was wide awake now, my exhaustion drowned by adrenaline. I started the engine, and that's when I saw the second envelope. I didn't touch the second envelope at first. I just stared at it, right where it sat, centered on the dashboard like it had been waiting for me. Same pale yellow paper, same typed letters, no smudges, no creases. Appeal denied. That was all it said on the front. Nothing else. No date, no fine amount, no department name, just that. I reached for it slowly, hand shaking a bit more than I'd like to admit. The moment my fingers brushed it, my stereo let out this high-pitched squeal, like an old fax machine having a stroke. I jumped and yanked my hand back. The noise cut off immediately. Silence returned like a blanket. I tore the paper in half, just to feel like I was doing something. Then into fourths, opened the glove box and shoved the pieces in. I didn't need that kind of crazy first thing in the morning. But when I looked back at the dashboard, the envelope was there again, Unopened, unmoved. My stomach twisted. I turned off the dash cam. Didn't want to know if it caught that too. I just put the car in reverse and backed out of the lot as fast as I could without crunching my bumper. As I passed the gate, I looked in the rearview mirror. The fence was closed. I hadn't closed it. I drove in silence for a while, heading towards City Hall without really thinking. The parking ticket was weird, sure, but maybe it was some prank by the city. A leftover policy or some broken meter system buried in bureaucracy. Maybe I parked on land with weird zoning rules. Maybe it was my sleep-deprived brain making a big deal out of nothing. But when I reached the municipal building, things didn't get better. They got weirder. The front desk clerk was polite, mid-50s, looked like she'd been doing this job since the 1800s. I handed her the citation. "I need to check on this ticket," I said. "I think it might be an error." She looked it over, then again. Then she squinted at the date. 2001, she said. "That can't be right." "Exactly. I got it this morning. Just a few hours ago. There was a guy in uniform who put it on my dash. No face. Look, I have dash cam footage. Well, kind of." She didn't look up, just typed something into her terminal, then frowned. "This lot doesn't exist in our system," she said. "You sure about the address?" "It was on Howard Street, between the 6th and the old insurance building." She paused, then slowly turned to the old man sitting at the neighboring desk. "Leo?" she said. "Didn't they tear that structure down after the fire?" Leo looked up, thin, wiry guy with glasses that didn't quite sit straight on his face. He stared at the paper for a long time, too long. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "No one's used that lot since the city condemned it. October 2001. Place went up like a matchbox. 3 fatalities." "Wait, what?" I asked. "That place burned down." Leo nodded. "But you said you parked there? Today?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. I suddenly felt like I'd walked into a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. "Look," I said finally, "I just want to clear the ticket. I don't care if it's some glitch. Just tell me who to talk to." The woman behind the desk looked pale now. Her hands hovered over her keyboard, uncertain. "If you want to file an appeal," she said slowly, "you'll have to visit the Transportation Records Annex." "Where the hell is that?" She pointed down the hallway, past the bathrooms, past the vending machines, toward a narrow metal door I'd never noticed before, even though I'd been in this building a dozen times. "Just follow the signs," she said, "and don't lose that citation. Once you go in, you need documentation to come back out." The hallway felt longer than it should have been. Dim, too. The fluorescent lights buzzed like a dying beehive, and the floor tiles grew progressively more cracked and yellowed the farther I walked. I passed a janitor's closet with a mop sticking out like it had been abandoned mid-shift. No windows, no people. Just that narrow metal door at the end with a peeling sign above it. Transportation Records. Annex. Authorized personnel only. I hesitated, thought about turning back. But then I looked at the citation again, and something about that clean, unnatural paper made my skin crawl. I had to see this through. I pushed the door open. It didn't creak or resist. It was silent, like it wanted me to enter. Inside was a narrow stairwell leading down, concrete walls, rusted railing. It spiraled into darkness. I descended slowly, holding my phone up as a flashlight. The air grew cold and thick. I could hear something dripping far below, like water hitting metal. Maybe a leak. Maybe something else. After what felt like 3 or 4 stories down, I reached a hallway. The walls were covered in faded transit maps and outdated posters. "Your fare, your future, 2000 Parking Amnesty Week," stuff from a dead time. A heavy smell hung in the air, like wet paper and scorched plastic. Ahead of me was a wooden reception counter, and behind it sat a woman in a dull gray uniform, her hair in a perfect bun, not a strand out of place. Her name tag said Edwina, but it was worn down to the metal. Her eyes didn't move, even as I approached. Hi, I said. I'm here about a parking citation, one I got this morning, for a lot that's been closed since 2001. She blinked slowly, then slid a clipboard forward. Fill this out, she said. Her voice was flat, like a phone recording. Section B through H. Don't skip anything. I glanced at the form. It was several pages long, asking for things like primary transit aura, temporal zone of infraction, and facial witness confirmation. What the hell is a temporal zone? I asked. She didn't answer, just pointed at a stack of pens. As I scribbled nonsense just to keep moving, I started hearing something faint from deeper inside the annex. At first I thought it was the ventilation, but no, it was voices, low and echoing, like a group murmuring in another room. I couldn't make out words, but the cadence was wrong, too slow, then too fast, like a tape being warped. I finished the last page and handed it back. Edwina gave it a glance, nodded, and stamped it with a device that hissed like steam. Proceed to room 119, she said. Left hall, fourth door. Do not open any other doors. Wait, I said. Can you tell me what this place is? She finally looked up. Her eyes were dull gray, like smoked glass. This is where unresolved violations go to be processed. I walked down the hall, counting doors. Room 117 was covered in red tape, its handle wrapped in what looked like old printer wire. Room 118 had a faint glow under the crack of the door, like a projector was running inside. I kept walking. Room 119 was a plain door with a small plaque that read, Appeals. I knocked once. The door swung open on its own. Inside was a small hearing room, like a DMV interrogation setup. A metal table, 2 chairs, a file folder sitting neatly in the center. And behind the desk, the same faceless man from my dash cam. His transit uniform was cleaner now, the buttons polished. He raised a hand slowly, motioning for me to sit. The air in the room tightened, like pressure was building. State your name and violation, he said, except his mouth didn't move. The words just were, echoing inside my head like someone had dropped them into a pool of thought. I sat. My legs didn't feel like mine anymore. My name is Darnell King, I said. I parked in a condemned lot because the gate was open. I was tired, I didn't know. No one knows, the voice said. That does not change the infraction. He slid the folder toward me. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Cars parked in the same spot. Drivers slumped in their seats, some asleep, some burned. One of them looked exactly like me, same hoodie, same car, but he wasn't breathing. I stared at the photo for what felt like forever. It was me. Same scar on my eyebrow, same chip in my front tooth. But in the photo, I was slumped back in the driver's seat, mouth open, skin charred around the eyes like something had boiled me from the inside. My hands were fused to the steering wheel. What is this? I croaked. Some sick trick? The faceless man didn't move. It is a future, one of many. A citation unpaid becomes an echo. I stood up, heart hammering in my chest. This is insane. I parked in a lot that looked abandoned, okay? It wasn't even marked. I didn't know it was condemned. Not knowing does not revoke the penalty. Penalty for what? I yelled. Loitering on cursed land? Who even enforces this crap? You don't even have a face. He tilted his head. That was somehow worse than shouting. The Bureau of Transit Infractions operates in temporal jurisdictions. You crossed into an unresolved incident perimeter. Entry without clearance is a Tier 3 offense. You parked in a location where time has not fully collapsed. I wanted to scream. Instead, I backed toward the door. "I'm leaving. I'm done playing government limbo. This is messed up." "You may leave," the voice echoed, "but the infraction will follow." As I reached for the door, he added, "The envelope will return. When it does, don't open it in darkness." I burst out of the room and down the hallway. The lighting flickered violently now, each buzz from the fluorescence like a wasp sting in my ears. The annex had changed, walls warped slightly inward like they were breathing. When I passed room 118 again, the door was ajar. I hadn't opened it. Something inside whispered, my name. I kept moving. Back through the reception area, Edwina was gone. Just the empty chair spinning slightly. Her nameplate was cracked in two. I sprinted up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. When I reached the top, the door was gone. Just blank drywall. I pounded on it, scratched at it. Nothing. No handle. No seam. Come on. Come on. Then I heard it. Behind me. Soft footsteps. Deliberate. Getting closer. I turned, fists clenched, but there was no one there. Just the hallway. Still and too quiet. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from my dashcam app. New footage detected 9:13 a.m. Auto upload failed. I opened the app, hands trembling. The footage began with me asleep in the driver's seat. Then the faceless man approached again. Only this time, he didn't place an envelope. He leaned into the car window. His head turned slowly toward the camera. No features. Just skin, like wax poured over a mannequin. He raised his hand, pointed straight at the lens. The video glitched, then showed me, awake, driving. My mouth was moving like I was talking, but my eyes were rolled back. Then static. Then darkness. The wall behind me opened without sound. I stumbled backward into daylight. I was back in City Hall. The receptionist blinked at me like I'd just popped into existence. "Sir? Are you okay? You look pale." I glanced around. The hallway was normal. The vending machines were humming. Someone walked past eating trail mix. I clutched the citation in my pocket. It was still warm. "Yeah," I mumbled. "Just tired." I walked out into the street, blinking in the afternoon light. I should have gone home, but something itched at the back of my brain. Something about that photo in the folder. The version of me who never left that car. I pulled out my phone and tried to delete the dashcam footage, but it was gone, replaced by a single message. Appeal under review. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment felt louder. The hum of the fridge, the distant honk from the street, the ticking of a clock I didn't remember owning. They all twisted into the same rhythm. Slow, slow, fast, like the voices I'd heard in the annex. The ticket sat on my nightstand, its corners too sharp, like it had been freshly cut by a blade. Every time I turned away, I swore it moved, just slightly. At one point, I shoved it into the trash. At 3:07 a.m., it was back on the table, but now, it was inside a black envelope. I remembered the warning. Don't open it in darkness, so I turned on every light in the apartment, even the oven lamp. I sat cross-legged on the kitchen floor, the envelope in my lap, and took a deep breath. My hands shook as I peeled it open. Inside was a small, laminated pass. One-time resolution, Transit Authority Division, Lost Routes. There was an address printed below it, somewhere near the waterfront. I recognized the street. It was under construction for years. Now it was supposedly reopened as a new commuter terminal. I stared at the pass. Then I thought about the photo of my dead twin in the car. Something told me I wasn't going to make it out of this by ignoring it. The next morning, I drove to the terminal. Fog rolled in heavy off the river. The lot was mostly empty, just a few early commuters in neon vests. But something about the building made my skin crawl. Too clean, too smooth. Like it hadn't been built, just placed there. The sliding doors opened before I could even step on the mat. Inside was cold, sterile, no signage, no announcements, just a single booth at the far end with a flickering light. I approached, and a man behind the glass looked up. He wore the same dull gray uniform as Edwina. No name tag, just a pin that read, "Transit Adjudicator." "Pass?" he asked. I slid it under the glass. He scanned it, then handed me a small plastic token. "Track 7. Don't speak to the other passengers. Exit only when instructed." My mouth opened to ask something, but he was already looking past me, like I'd ceased to be interesting. I walked to the terminal entrance. Each track was numbered on old split-flap boards that hadn't worked in years. Only track 7 was lit. The train was waiting, but it wasn't like any commuter train I'd seen. Sleek black metal, no windows. The doors opened with a hiss as I approached. Inside, the car was dim, lit only by a soft white glow striping the ceiling. Rows of passengers sat, silent. Every single one had a citation in their hands. Some looked dead, some were sobbing. One woman clutched her ticket like a rosary. I sat near the back, trying not to breathe too loud. The train began to move without sound or lurch, just motion. After a while, I tried to look outside, but there was only darkness, like we were riding through nothing, no tunnels, no ground. Then a soft voice filled the car. "Final processing begins shortly. Prepare necessary documentation. Violators without appeals will be retained." My pass began to heat in my pocket. I pulled it out. The words had changed. "Appeal voided. Processing required." My throat tightened. Across the aisle, a man stood up, ticket shaking in his hand. "This isn't right. I paid my fine. I paid it." He started banging on the door. The lights flickered. Then, without warning, something dragged him upward. No rope, no arms, just lifted, screaming, then gone. Nobody else moved. The silence returned, and I sat, frozen, clutching a pass that was turning darker with every second. I pressed my back against the cold seat, heart pounding like it wanted out. The man who got taken, no one even looked shaken. It was like the train erased reactions, or worse, forced them inward. My pass had turned completely black. Another voice crackled over the intercom, this one harsher, mechanical. "Documentation expired, violation unresolved, initiating audit." I clutched the pass, praying for it to change, to show anything, words, numbers, even static. But it stayed blank. I thought of jumping from the train, but there were no doors now, just walls. The entire interior had reshaped while I wasn't paying attention. Then a soft chime rang. The passengers began to rise. One by one, they walked to the front of the car, where a thin, pulsing light framed an opening that hadn't been there before. No one spoke. No one hesitated. A whisper curled through the cabin like smoke. "Next auditee, Darnell Hayes." I flinched. A red light illuminated above my seat. "Proceed." I stood slowly, legs trembling. I followed the others, my feet heavy, like I was walking through wet cement. The opening pulsed brighter as I neared it. Inside was a small room lined with cracked monitors, all showing different versions of me. One sleeping, one panicking, one burned beyond recognition, one smiling with hollow eyes. A voice behind the screen said, "Multiple infractions, timeline tampering, presence in non-linear transit zones, improper appeal." "Stop," I muttered. "I didn't do any of that. I parked, I slept. That's all." No incident is isolated. Every station is a node. Every vehicle a vessel. "You crossed over." "I didn't mean to," I shouted. "I didn't know." Intent does not negate consequence. Suddenly the screens flickered, and I saw the face of someone I hadn't thought about in years. My dad. He'd disappeared when I was 11. No one knew why. Just vanished one night after work. Now he was here, sitting in a train cabin just like mine, pale, eyes blank, ticket clenched in his hand. "No," I whispered. "That's not real." "Unresolved infractions transcend generations," the voice echoed. "Your line remains unpaid." "Take me then," I said hoarsely. "Leave him alone." The lights dimmed. "Forfeiture accepted. Payment processing." My legs gave out. I collapsed to my knees. The floor felt like static, buzzing beneath me. But then the screen shattered, glass and sparks exploding outward, and a second voice broke through, clear and panicked. "Override request initiated by Transit Clerk Edwina Malkin. Classification breach logged." The voice that had been judging me crackled, warbled, then fell silent. The walls shifted. One peeled open like wet paper. Edwina stood on the other side, pale and shaking. "Come now, Darnell," she hissed. "You've got a window. I don't know how long I can hold it." I bolted through, her hand pulling me forward. Behind us, alarms began to blare. We were running through an impossible space, train cars folded into stairwells, tunnels leading into filing cabinets, elevators dangling sideways. "Why are you helping me?" I gasped. She didn't answer until we slid through a final doorway and slammed it shut behind us. "Because I parked there once, too." She held up her arm. Her skin was peeling, glitching like bad footage. Her hand flickered into something clawed, then human again. "I appealed," she whispered. "I stayed. Now I help those who might still leave." I couldn't speak. She shoved a card into my hand. It was blank, but warm. "Take the service stairs behind you. Don't stop, no matter what asks you to." I turned to go. "Wait," I said. "That photo, the one of me burned, was that real?" She looked down. "It was one of you." Then, she was gone. The service stairs looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. Rust coated every railing. The light bulbs overhead flickered with no pattern, and the air reeked of something old, like mold and machine oil. I clutched the blank card Edwina had given me like it was holy. My lungs burned with each step, but I didn't stop. Her voice echoed in my mind. "Don't stop, no matter what asks you to." On the third landing, I heard my mother's voice. "Darnell, baby, where are you going? You forgot your keys again." I didn't look back. On the fifth, it was my old friend Marcus, dead in a car crash 5 years ago. "D-man, this is the wrong way. Come chill with us a minute. Remember the night we skipped curfew?" I bit my tongue and kept going. The walls around me started to pulse, breathing like lungs. Something scraped the metal below. On the 8th floor, the stairs just ended. A concrete wall where more steps should have been. I almost collapsed. "Number no, no, no." I pounded the wall with my fists until they ached. The card in my hand began to glow faintly. I held it up. The wall rippled. A small square hatch appeared, just big enough to crawl through. Beyond it was a space filled with light, real light, not the clinical glow of the train. It was soft, warm. I crawled in. I was back in my car, parked exactly where I had started. Same condemned lot, same steering wheel, same scent of stale coffee. I gasped, touching everything, making sure it wasn't a trick. Outside, it was morning. The sun was rising, real sun. I reached for my phone, full battery, no missed calls. I checked the date, April 18th, 2025. Only a single night had passed. I laughed, sobbed, laughed again. I was alive. I was free. I had made it out. Then I saw it. The ticket on the dash. Same yellow paper. But this time it read, "Notice. Temporary release. Compliance pending. Further audit expected." And under that, in blood red letters, "This vehicle remains a registered transit property. Do not exit city limits." My joy drained like air from a balloon. I reached for the glove box. Inside was the dash cam, still recording. I played the footage from last night. Everything was there. Me falling asleep. The transit officer with no face placing the first ticket, walking away with the same stiff gait. Then a frame skipped. A second faceless figure appeared, peering into the windshield. Except, it wasn't wearing the gray uniform. It wore my face. Its eyes were hollow. Its mouth was too wide. It left the second ticket, the one that said, "Appeal denied." I ejected the footage and locked it in my glove box. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "Your route is being updated. Please remain parked." And under it, estimated audit, 11 hours, 42 minutes. I looked around. The lot was still empty, still condemned. But now, I could see more clearly. The fence had grown taller. The sky above looked stained. I wasn't free. I was on layover. I leaned back in my seat, clutching the blank card still faintly glowing in my pocket, and whispered, "I'm not staying forever." Something on the radio clicked. The same voice from the train echoed faintly. "All appeals are temporary." And just like that, the dashcam blinked red, recording again.